Welcome to Authentically Aligned, a wellness space where we speak on all things wellness, from fitness and nutrition to meditation and mindfulness, nervous system regulation, healing, growth, self-help, and so much more. If you are a new listener, welcome to the podcast. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for your love and support. And I want you to know that I'm sending you that same love and support right back. Today, my question for you is, are you growing or are you making yourself comfortable? And as we move through today's conversation, we are going to better understand how self-sabotage isn't the only way that we hold ourselves back. Sometimes we are enabling ourselves out of growth. And it's important for us to understand the moments where we're doing this and how we allow ourselves to stop holding ourselves back and how we propel ourselves forward. There's absolutely a difference between self-sabotage and self-enabling. And self-enabling comes from good intent. It comes from a space of self-care. It comes from a place of self-compassion. However, that does not mean it isn't a disguise for holding ourselves back, and even sometimes a disguise for self-sabotage. When we think of personal growth, we think that the biggest thing holding us back is self-sabotage. We think about the fear, we think about the doubt, the insecurity, and the what ifs. But what if what's keeping us stuck isn't only self-sabotage, but what if it's something that speaks much more quietly? It's something that even looks like self-love. And sometimes the greatest barrier to your growth isn't working against yourself, but it's becoming so comfortable that you stop challenging yourself. Being authentically aligned isn't about constantly pushing yourself, but it's also not about constantly protecting yourself. It's about having the wisdom, the understanding to know which one we need in every single moment. Self-sabotage is something that I think most of us, or many of us, are all too familiar with. But in case it's not something that you're familiar with, what does self-sabotage look like? Self-sabotage can look like procrastination, perfectionism, negative self-talk, doubting yourself, quitting before you even start, avoiding opportunities, fear of failure, and fear of success. Self-sabotage is usually fear disguised as a behavior. Usually we use fear as an excuse for the way that we're showing up for ourselves or not showing up for ourselves. And it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you don't care, but it's your nervous system that's trying to protect you from uncertainty. It's trying to protect you from the unknown, disappointment, rejection, even change. But we all know that growth requires stepping into the unknown. Growth requires the uncomfortable, the unsettling, the unsure, the uncertain. And unfortunately, our nervous system naturally prefers the things that are certain, that feel safe, that feel familiar. Even though most times what is familiar is the exact thing that's no longer serving us or preventing us from actually growing. So oftentimes we can think of self-sabotage being a lack of discipline, when in reality, it's not that you lack discipline. It's that your nervous system speaks louder than your discipline. Your nervous system is screaming for familiarity, and it's trying to keep you safe, which is why it holds you in the most comfortable spaces. but having understanding of how your self-sabotage plays into your discipline. It's important for you to build the muscle of discipline so that in moments where your nervous system is trying to say something, you're able to still continue with your discipline. You're able to still take action. You're able to still move forward despite the uncomfortable feelings that your body is feeling. Now, let's talk about self-enabling, because self-enabling is different. It comes disguised different, but it shows up very similarly. Self-enabling isn't working against yourself. At least we don't believe that we're working against ourselves. But what it is it's quietly giving you permission to stay where you are. It speaks to us in a much kinder way, a much softer way, a much quieter way, which allows us to dismiss and excuse some of our behaviors with grace, compassion, and understanding. It can sound like, I'll start Monday. I'll give myself the weekend and I'll start Monday. It can sound like, I deserve another day off. I deserve more rest. It can sound like, I'm protecting my peace. I'm honoring the space that I'm in right now. And maybe even, I'm just not ready yet. And the difficult part about this is that sometimes those statements, sometimes the grace, the self-compassion is exactly what we need in that moment. But other times, their fear wearing the disguise of self-compassion. And the question isn't what you're saying, but the question is, why are you saying it? Do you actually need another day off? Or are you subconsciously scared? Are you subconsciously afraid of what is to come when there is success? Are you not ready to grieve the old version of yourself? And when will you be ready? Because you're never fully ready for anything. And when you wait until you're ready, most times you wait until it's too late. Now, what happens when self-compassion becomes an excuse? There is a balance that needs to occur between giving ourselves compassion and practicing accountability. It is absolutely okay. It is absolutely necessary to take a rest day when you need it, when your mind needs it, when your body needs it, when your spirit needs it. But it's also just as important to be able to hold yourself accountable and to pull yourself out of the self-compassion and hold yourself to a higher standard. Because if you self-compassion everything in your life, you're never going to be at a space where you feel your greatest. You're always going to be in a mediocre space. So unless you're challenging yourself, unless you're pushing yourself, unless you're holding yourself accountable, you cannot expect greatness from yourself. And inside of that then becomes a vicious cycle of self-compassion, of holding yourself back and keeping yourself stuck while also saying it's okay. Being able to discern whether you truly need rest or you're practicing avoidance because you don't want to do something, or you're not good at something, or you don't know how to do something. Using your discernment when it comes to what it looks like to set boundaries versus completely isolating yourself. You can isolate yourself so hard. You can set boundaries so hard that you end up isolating yourself. Are you giving yourself grace, or are you making excuses? And when you're so used to giving yourself grace, you don't recognize that you are making excuses. There's a difference between practicing acceptance and settling. And the difference is that when you're settling, you know that you could have showed up to a better capacity. You could have showed up as a better version of yourself, but instead you chose to settle. Acceptance looks like knowing that you showed up as the absolute best version of yourself. You gave it your all. You showed up to your highest capacity, and it wasn't what you wanted. It wasn't what you expected. It wasn't what you thought it would be. That is acceptance. Being okay with it not being what you thought it was going to be, despite giving it your all. Growth requires you to be gentle. It requires self-compassion. It requires understanding because you can't consistently be beating yourself up. But growth also requires honesty. And inside of that honesty comes accountability and then responsibility. There's a difference between taking accountability and taking responsibility. And taking accountability looks like understanding and being able to admit. But responsibility is, what are you going to do about it? What changes are you going to make so that you can say that you're accountable and that you're willing to make change as you hold yourself accountable? Understanding that real self-compassion doesn't mean that we're never going to experience uncomfortable moments. If you are not experiencing any uncomfortable moments in your life, there's a problem, because that means you're not growing. That means you're staying stuck. Self-compassion allows us to move through the uncomfortable moments with a little bit more peace, with a little bit more confidence, with a little bit more courage. An important reminder that we all need to hear time and time again: discomfort is not the enemy. We assume that when things feel uncomfortable, it isn't right. It must be misaligned. This can't be. But if we shy away from every uncomfortable moment, we stay exactly the same day after day after day after day. Discomfort is not always a warning sign. Discomfort is often proof that you are stretching and growing beyond what you have always known. Think about the last time that you had a difficult conversation. I would imagine the conversation was uncomfortable. But think about how you felt after the conversation. Maybe you still felt uneasy or unsteady. But after having that uncomfortable conversation, you felt different. You felt new. You felt stronger. You felt wiser. You felt more confident. Sitting with the uncomfortable also looks like setting boundaries. It looks like starting something new that you've never done before and being okay with maybe not being the best at it, or maybe experiencing failure, or places that you get to learn from your mistakes. Putting yourself in an uncomfortable position could look like receiving feedback. Maybe these aren't the things that you want to hear, but maybe these are the things that you need to hear in order for you to grow. Putting yourself in an uncomfortable position looks like leaving behind old identities and stepping into new. It's uncomfortable to leave the old version of yourself behind. It's uncomfortable to leave behind the excuses. But when you start to and continue to leave behind the excuses, is when you actually start to grow. It's when you allow yourself to be you unapologetically. It's when you have courage, and through every act of courage, you build more and more and more confidence. trust within yourself. Not every uncomfortable sign is a sign that you're not growing. It's not always a sign to stop. And more times than not, it's a sign that you're finally growing. Let's talk about questions that help us to discover if we're allowing ourselves to grow or if we're self-enabling. Instead of asking yourself what feels the easiest or what feels the most comfortable, start asking yourself, what helps me to become the person that I want to become? And as you explore this, ask yourself, am I resting or am I avoiding? Am I protecting myself or am I limiting myself? Am I choosing peace or am I choosing comfort? And sometimes comfort comes disguised as peace. And asking yourself, is this decision helping me to grow or is it causing me to stay the same? The same habits, the same practices breed the same results. If you want different results, you have to change your decisions, your habits, your practices. The next time that you're faced with a decision, take time. Take time to pause. Take time to ask yourself questions. Take time to become aligned with yourself so that you make the best decision for you and your growth. Ask yourself, is this decision coming from fear? Am I afraid of losing something? Am I afraid my life is going to change? I mean, isn't that the point? Is this decision coming from comfort and wanting to stay comfortable? What about the alignment? Is this decision aligned or is it safe? Is this decision aligned or does it just feel good? You don't have to react to anything immediately. You don't have to make any decision immediately or urgently. The best decisions come from understanding. The best decisions come from reasoning. Take time to create space between the feeling that you experience and the decision that you make. And that is where you begin intentional living. It is so important for anybody to understand that growth doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes doing less is what helps us to grow. Growth is simply about becoming and being more honest, more truthful with yourself, more authentic to yourself, and more aligned with yourself. Sometimes you do need rest. Sometimes you need courage. Sometimes you need compassion, and sometimes you need accountability. Being authentically aligned is learning and being able to understand and articulate which one serves you in every moment, in every circumstance, in every season. Today, I'm going to leave you with 2 journal prompts for the week. The first one is, where in my life have I confused comfort for growth? And if I wasn't afraid of being uncomfortable, what would I do differently this week? Growth is rarely comfortable, but neither is staying where you are. The goal isn't for every decision that you make to feel good, but the goal is for every decision that you make to be progressing you and propelling you forward. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is not show yourself compassion, but show yourself accountability that's rooted in love. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with a friend, a family member, anybody that might need it. I am sending you so much love and light this week. Have a beautiful week.